All right, I think we're live. If we are live, give me a 5x5. 5x5 just means you can see what's on the screen right here, and you can hear me on my mic, which, you know, there have been cases, there have been incidents where the mic didn't work. So let me know if you can hear me. Let me do a quick mic check right here. If we are live, give me... All right, cool. What's up, Crypto King? Brian Smith's in the house. Tiles says, my fake roommate was named Brian. My fake roommate? 5x5 says Tiles. Don't tread on Rick. Rick is here. Don't tread on him. Hey, guys, I don't usually go live on this channel. It's kind of discouraging. Been around the internet and YouTube for a long time. This channel's been demonetized for over 5 years. This May will be 6 years. Been demonetized for 6 years. If you view this content as valuable, and that's what I want to do. My main goal is to bring value to you. Value that we can employ in our lives, so that we can have knowledge. Knowledge is power, but to enact that knowledge is wisdom. The application of the knowledge that we have is wisdom. And the only way we're going to change our world is to enact that wisdom. And one of the ways we do it is by blowing holes in the current paradigm, the current psychological operation. And in case people wonder what the heck a psychological operation is, the military is still hiring for psychological operators. Let me show you something real quick. I wasn't planning on covering this, but there are psychological operations units, and they hire psychological operators. And one of the reasons they hire psychological operators is because they're trying to manipulate nations. Nations are made up of people, and so they want to manipulate people. These soldiers are known for their communication expertise using unconventional tactics. One of those unconventional tactics that psychological operators use is mainstream, fake stream, CIA, infiltrated, Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra Media. And I know that people say constantly, Brian, you sound like a frickin' broken record, but maybe this will embed the truth into people's minds. Because remember, if you want to engage in successful warfare, you have got to demolish the truth. You've got to take the edges off the truth. And if you make truth moderate, then you have actually ushered in the lie. And that's why this channel won't ever be popular. Not ever again. They manipulate the algorithm. They demonetize the content creators so that they're discouraged, because it takes a lot of time to do this kind of research. Most Americans have never heard the term PsyOps, even though you have. Most Americans don't understand that there are psychological operations afoot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to make sure that they don't know what the truth is, whatever it might be and wherever it might be found. They even want you to condemn the truth if it comes out of the mouth of somebody that you don't endorse, like a Hillary Clinton on one side or a Donald Trump on the other. Donald Trump will tell the truth at times, but that's part of the psychological operations. Hillary Clinton will tell the truth. Even Bill Clinton will tell the truth at times. But the reason that the left versus right paradigm lie is so powerful and it's so effective is that it gets people who are immersed in the cult of personality, who are cemented in their brains in cognitive dissonance from not accepting the truth if it comes out of the mouth of somebody that they've been conditioned not to trust. And there's everything not to trust about Hillary Clinton. There's everything not to trust about Donald Trump. There's everything not to trust about the uniparty system, which is masquerading as a two-party system. So if you view this content as valuable and you want to support this channel, the Cash App, the Buy Me a Coffee and all that stuff is below. If you send me a Cash App, I've got my screen open right now. I'll give you a shout out. The problem with Cash App is that you can't, like, if you want to like convey a message to me, they only give you like, 20, 50 characters. I don't even know what it is, but I'll give you a shout out. I really appreciate you guys staying with me all these years, in spite of all the economic terrorism, in spite of all the censorship, in spite of all the garbage that YouTube has done to this channel and many other channels like James Corbett from the Corbett Report, Dan Dix from Press for Truth, a whole bunch of others. So these soldiers are known for their communications expertise using unconventional tactics to persuade and influence foreign allies and domestic individuals and enemies in support of U.S. Army objectives. In other words, they're trying to manipulate the minds of the masses of whatever nation, including America, into being sympathetic toward the military-industrial complex. That's what this is all about. And let me just read further. PsyOp soldiers strategically influence and deceive. This is GoArmy.com, guys. I'm not making this up. This is U.S. Army, GoArmy.com. Here, let me put the link. And this is careers and jobs from GoArmy.com. And I'm laying this as a foundation before we talk about this Jon Stewart psychological operation with the Counterfeit Communist News Network. But I want to drive the point home that according to their own documentation, according to their own websites, they are trying to strategically influence, i.e. manipulate and deceive your minds into thinking a certain way, into carving in a little rut to where this is the way Americans are going to think because this is our strategy. Who the frick is talking about? Is Tucker Carlson talking about this? Is Jon Stewart talking about this? Is Rachel Madcow talking about this? No. Why aren't they talking about this? Because they're part of the psychological operations unit. Even the corrupt Congress back in the 1970s unearthed this during the Church Commission. And the Church Commission, they revealed that the CIA had infiltrated all of print and televised media. All of it. Period. That's what their objective is. To commandeer all of print and televised media so that they can influence and deceive you for their purposes. Not for your benefit. Psychological operations soldiers benefit the Army's missions by using unconventional techniques. Guys, the Army's mission is not your mission. Your mission is just, I just want to be free. I just want to be left alone. I just want to maintain and keep 100% of everything I went out to work and support my family with. That's not their mission. Their intelligence, interpersonal skills, cultural sensitivity, and foreign language proficiency help sway opinions and actions of foreign governments, groups, and individuals, including you. In their eyes, you're a domestic terrorist. In their eyes, you're the enemy. You will always be an enemy of the state, even if you comply, even if you give a percentage of the product of your time and laboring energies to the authorities. You're still the enemy. You'll always be the enemy of the state. And as Bastiat said, the state is that great fiction by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. In other words, they don't have principles. They don't have morals. They don't have standards. The only standard and objective and mission that they have is to deceive your mind into thinking the way they want to wire you to think. It's kind of like Jeremy B. Thank you for that Cash App. Jeremy says, keep spitting the truth, brother. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that donation. Psychological warfare requires adaptability, resilience, and problem solving to be successful. These guys are constantly training and being trained. And oh, guess what? Where do they get the resources? Where do they get the funding to be experts in deceiving you? From your tax dollars. There's the insult to injury right there. To become a PsyOp soldier. Do you know that Tulsi Gabbard is a former, because I don't think once you become a PsyOp soldier or an FBI agent or a CIA agent, according to all indications that I've seen from my research, you're always an FBI agent, a CIA agent, a PsyOp soldier. You will always be. Tulsi Gabbard trained in psychological warfare. She was a PsyOp soldier, is a PsyOp soldier. To become a PsyOp soldier, you'll be thoroughly tested and trained on your critical thinking skills and your mental and physical toughness in order to prepare you for work in the field. You are the field. You are the garden that they plan on sowing the seeds of deception and deceit and intrigue in. You and I are. America is. This isn't for American interest. This is for psychological operations unit objectives and missions and the military industrial complex, which is basically the defense contractors. Anytime you see a war being foisted, it's not because of the interests of Americans. It's because of the interests of the defense contractors, of the military industrial complex, of the political parasites and the lobbyists that undergird them. That's what it is. So now we get to this psychological operations, and it looks like CNN is tapping into Jon Stewart, who once condemned CNN, who many times has condemned CNN and all of corporate media for basically being lapdogs for the military-industrial complex. This is why I constantly call it fake stream CIA infiltrated Operation Mockingbird MK Ultra Media, because it is according to the Church Committee in Congress, not according to me, not according to David Icke or Alex Jones. If you're going to believe what Alex Jones says. It's not because of that. It's because of their own documentation. It's because of their own words. It's because of what the truth that they've given us that they let slip out. They are the psychological operations units. If you want a successful war, you've got to end truth or dilute the truth, or at least take the edges off truth. Taking one edge off the truth automatically makes it not the truth. Successful psychological warfare includes decimating or diluting the truth. So Jon Stewart, who once spoke, or many times spoke against CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and all that, rightly so, is now appearing in a CNN studio to talk to Fareed Zakaria about certain things that the Republicans are talking about that they shouldn't be talking about. One of them being CRT, critical race theory. And there's an aspect of truth here that I agree with Jon Stewart on, is that CRT is being talked about so much. You would think that that was the thing that was bringing America down. That's just one piece of the puzzle. Until you take your axe and you lay it at the root of the tree and you burn that stump out of the ground, you will never take care of CRT. You will never take care of, the critical race theory is one aspect of it. You will never take care of the gender stuff that's being propagated to warp the minds of our children. You'll never take care of that. You'll never take care of the police brutality problem. They are the true domestic terrorists. There are over 800,000 sworn United States police officers. And what's their main objective? To carry out the laws of politicians. And most of the laws of politicians are utterly corrupt and evil and just plain old unjust. So when you have law enforcement and laws of the opinions of politicians backed by the threat of force, you are talking about people who don't care about your freedoms, because laws serve two primary purposes. Number one, to take away the freedoms of Americans, and number two, to economically devastate them. For example, if you get a speeding ticket for 7 miles an hour over the speed limit, they're going to give you a $225 ticket. If they find out that you don't have a license plate, or you're not current with your registration, or you're driving without insurance, they'll impound your vehicle. That's economic terrorism. And what crime did you commit? You didn't commit a crime. Because in order to commit a legitimate crime, you have to create a material legitimate victim. The state cannot be the victim of individuals. If there is no victim, there is no crime. If you haven't harmed somebody, threatened to harm somebody, or damaged somebody's property and refused to pay for it, you have not committed a crime. It's not a crime to drive 7, 10, 12 miles an hour of the speed limit, but they're going to economically terrorize you and devastate you anyway. Why? Because of the law. They're law enforcers. And yet they will speed, they will run red lights, they will disobey their own traffic commands, but they won't give themselves tickets. If a cop pulls over another cop, like an off-duty cop, all he has to do is flash his back. Oh, hey, no problem. Even on body cam footage. Sometimes they won't, but most of the time they will. What does that say? Oh, law enforcement officers have a higher claim over your life and property than you. They're more important citizens than you are. So laws serve two purposes: take away the rights of the people and economically terrorize them. And the third, probably most important, there is three aspects to it. It increases the power and coffers of the state, because for every loss on one side of the coin, there's a win on the other side of the coin. They hand you that $225 traffic ticket, or you got to pay $208 to get your car out of the impound lot. That money goes out of your pocket into somebody else's pocket. It doesn't just evaporate. So you lose power and the state gains power. And that is the purpose of laws, for the state to gain in power and for the people who didn't submit to the law diminish in power. So listen to this nonsense here. Let me go back over it. We'll start at the beginning. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it. Give the video a thumbs up if you get something out of this. If you feel like it's worthy of a thumbs up, it does help with the algorithms. And when this video gets done rendering, make sure you leave a comment, because it helps overcome the algos on that aspect too.
When you watch Republicans campaign against Democrats, they don't campaign much on what they used to, which was, the Democrats were big spenders or whatever, what. It's all about critical race theory,
Sure.
and it's all this cancel culture stuff.
Yes, the biggest problem.
Why does it work, and what should Democrats do? Are they falling for a bait in doing this?
See, this is an area that CNN shouldn't be involved in. That they are beholden to Democrats shows you that they are not an unbiased news source. They're in the back pocket of Democrats, which makes them biased. And if you have a biased news source, you have a news source, and I'm putting that in quotes because this isn't news, guys. Like we said, this is PsyOps. But they openly admit, they're blatant, they're clear about it. They don't care about you. They care about their side of the coin, and they will hold up their side of the coin no matter what, because the Democrats have to be against the Republicans. And then you turn on Fox News, the Republicans have to be against the Democrats. And then there's this constant barrage of biased journalism, which isn't journalism at all. If you have journalism that's biased, they don't care about the truth. They just care about supporting their side. That automatically makes them illegitimate. And that's why this channel is not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's what the frick is the truth? How do we get to the bottom of the truth? How do we work and operate in truth? Because that's the only thing that's going to bring the monstrosity of the state down. That's the only thing.
And talking about these issues.
I don't know if they're falling for a bait, but I think, again, I don't even think half of the Republicans that do it even mean it. I think they think it's
it works.
Emotion. Right. What would you do if you were out of governing ideas? If you didn't know how to govern,
isn't that interesting? What would you do? Let me ask you as an individual. What would you do if you ran out of governing ideas? What's governing mean? To control. What would you do if you ran out of? Jon Stewart is literally saying in our faces, what would you do if you ran out of ideas on how to control your neighbor against his will and without his consent? What would you do? Cash App just came in from Brooklyn Audit. Brooklyn Audit says, good to see you live. And caught it. Thanks, Brooklyn Audit. If you haven't done so, check out Brooklyn Audit. He's doing really good work there, exposing the corruption in the New York City Police Department there in New York. What would you do if you ran out of ideas? Think how psychopathic this is. If you and I were sitting down in a coffee shop, a local coffee shop, having a cup of coffee and breakfast, and I said, "Man, what do we do? We've run out of ideas on how to control our fellow human beings here in our town." You would look at me like, why are you trying to control them in the first place? Why are you trying? It's like, what if two rapists were sitting down, or two murderers, or two thieves sitting down to have a cup of coffee? Dude, I've run out of ideas on how to control my neighbor. I've run out of ideas on how to break into his house. I've run out of ideas on how to steal his car. Give me some new and fresh ideas. That's what Jon Stewart is saying here. And I don't think Jon Stewart is stupid. As a matter of fact, I think he's pretty intelligent. So intelligent, in fact, that he's going to dangle the truth in our faces and talk to a CNN operative, and CNN, CIA, same thing, according to the church committee. What would you do if you ran out? He's talking about the GOP. The GOP has run out of ideas on how to control the American people. How do they get that control back? Well, they're desperate. They're going to have to talk about CRT.
Country of this magnitude and a country of this diversity, and you basically are running on government is broken, and then when you get in office, you have to be terrible to prove the original premise. Like, it must be great to be able to do that. This government doesn't work, and by me not funding it and breaking it, see what I told you? Keep me in power.
Look at that. Look at that. Keep me in power. If the problem with the world is that there are evil people, then the last thing you wouldn't even think about doing this, is giving some of those evil people a monopoly on force and power. But he wants the Democrats, Jon Stewart and Fareed here, and all of CNN and all of fake stream media and all of the leftists want the left to have the power, and everybody on the right, all the rightists want the right to have the power. What if it's a bad idea to give people power? What if power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely? And if that is true, why do you want these people to have power? What's the answer? Well, we know what the answer isn't. If you want to waste money, if you want them to use your wasted money, if you want not to steal money, and if you want them not to steal your money and waste money and build up the military industrial complex and create a situation where they have this massive stockpile of arms to deploy against you, then the last thing you'd want to do is create a government. And I know people give me a hard time about this. Government, 2 Latin words, governo and mentis. To control is what govern is, and mentis is the mind control. And people are like, no, mentis could mean something different. But what does it look like in practice? Oh, it looks like, psychological operations. It looks like mind control. It looks like the government is heavily involved in and advertised and puts out on GoArmy.com that we need more psychological operators so that they can initiate more mind control. Government is, in practice, mind control. Go ahead, get away from the etymology of the actual word government and where it comes from and what it actually means when you break down the word, and just look at how it's lived out. What is Congress trying to do when they write a bill that becomes a law? Oh, they're trying to control people. They're trying to take more of your money away that you don't want taken away. They're trying to create agencies that are going to take away more of your rights. It's all about control for government. And that's what these PsyOps are doing. That's what these psychological operators are doing. They're sitting at this table in broad daylight, telling you that you are the terrorists that we need to take down, and will deploy any psychological operations format to make sure it gets done.
If you don't have ideas on governing, what do? Well, you do the purposeful distortion field that they create.
But it works,
and by the way,
right? Because it's emotional.
Does it work?
I don't know.
Who's the president?
Well, but
I mean, it doesn't necessarily.
And what did he just deny right there? He did not. He's promoted that the president, Joe Biden, was that this is a part of a democratic election process, instead of looking at the reality and lifting up the curtain just a little bit so you can peer on the other side and realize that since at least 1913, it's been a C-election process by the people who actually control the outflow and the issuance and the value of our currency. Who is actually in control? Remember what Amschel Rothschild said? Hey, give me control over a nation's money. I don't care who makes the laws. I don't care if they're Republican. I don't care if they're Democrat. I don't care about Congress. I don't care about the executive branch. I don't care about the legislative branch. I don't care about the judicial branch of the Supreme Court. We control the purse strings. We are the ones in control. And it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter if they're team red or team blue, team elephant, team donkey. Oh, ain't that cute? We're the Federal Reserve. We are the power to be reckoned with. And just like Alan Greenspan said, he was asked, hey, what should the relationship be between a Fed chairman and the president of the United States? He goes, you know what? As long as they do what we say, it doesn't matter what the relationship is. I could care less. Those are the words of the people that are in control. Jon Stewart knows this, but he's going to pretend like this fact doesn't exist.
Work. It gets people upset. It gets them angry. It makes them fearful about threats and hyperbole.
This is another reason why I go live, because none of us is greater than all of us. And sorry that I keep stopping. This might drive some people crazy, but this is a commentary channel. But Rob B in the chat put the hammer right on the nail right there. He said Stewart's whole existence depends on this system. If it crashes, what the heck is Jon Stewart going to do? Starve. He's dependent on this system. He undergirds this system. Mitchell M. I'm not going to say anybody's last name, but Mitchell M. just dropped a Snapchat. What am I talking about? Cash App. Keep up the good work, brother. Thank you, guys. If you're new to this channel, I've been demonetized for over 5 years. If you want to send a super chat, you can't, but you can circumvent this and send a message via Snapchat, or why do I keep saying Snapchat? Cash App, or buy me a coffee. And if you want to send a message, I'll read it out. Thank you, guys. So thanks, Jeremiah. Thanks, Brooklyn Audit, and thanks, Mitchell Morris. Mitchell M. Sorry, Mitchell.
and makes them afraid of things that can't even really be defined, meanwhile ignoring so many issues that, like,
right, it's a kind of real appeal to a base that you stoke up.
Right.
When Sarah Huckabee Sanders did the response to the State of the Union.
There's another enemy of the people. Sarah Huckabee is an enemy of the people. Jon Stewart is an enemy of the people. CNN is an enemy of the people. Trump is right. All mainstream media is enemy of the people, including faux news.
I noticed she kept talking about CRT. She didn't even bother to spell it out to it. Because most people, I would assume most average Americans don't know what it means.
The guy who came up with that, that's purposeful. His plan is make everything CRT. And by the way, all this diversity initiatives and CRT and all those other things are only there because we refuse to actually fix the real problem. The diversity and equity initiatives.
I totally agree with that. All this other stuff is really window dressing. It's really all smokescreen. Not that it doesn't need to be talked about. There are people out there going, what are we talking about CRT for? What are we talking about Dylan Mulvaney for? The most popular things to talk about on Earth right now, the two most popular things in the last week, believe it or not, is a guy named Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light. Anheuser-Busch and Dylan Mulvaney. That's what people have been talking about. Now, there are people out there that go, we don't need to be talking about this. I think it should be talked about. It's an aspect of what's going on, but it's only a symptom of the major problem. We wouldn't be talking about this if we didn't have Federal Reserve notes. I guarantee you. We wouldn't have 800 military bases in 150 different countries if it wasn't for the Federal Reserve note. We wouldn't be talking about the CBDCs if it wasn't for the Federal Reserve note. Why? Because a dishonest money system, upon the foundation of a dishonest money system, you can build all this nonsense and fund psychological operations and fund corporate media and fund the military industrial complex and fund the defense contractors and say we got to get in war with Ukraine and Russia and we got to be involved in military deployments in the Middle East and all over the world. You could not fund that without a central bank. It would be impossible because you would only have enough gold and silver in the reserves, and everybody knows you can't just make that out of thin air. But if you can run the printing presses, and now you don't even have to run the printing presses because we're in a digital age. All you have to do is type ones and zeros from the Treasury into the bank accounts of Raytheon or into the bank account of people in Ukraine. Can you think of a more corrupt nation, a more corrupt government than in the old yellow and blue country that you can't talk about if you're a certain channel? So yeah, he's right. We should be talking about the real issue, but the real issue is the Federal Reserve. It's the fact that we don't have sound money. It's the fact that we have an IRS domestic terror cell that's making everybody nervous every April because they're afraid to get their taxes wrong. That's what we should be talking about. But that's not what Jon Stewart's saying. He knows what the truth is. He knows where the axe should be laid, but he's only going to talk about the leaves on the tree. Let's talk about CRT. Let's talk about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let's talk about the GOP.
Are a salve. They're to pacify and mollify because we won't actually do the real thing. We won't actually dismantle the vestiges of all the systemic racism and all the systemic classism and all the systemic gender issues. We won't actually dismantle that.
As though systemic racism was a problem. Look, guys, if systemic racism was a problem, they would have the powers that shouldn't be would have never created the Lincoln Memorial. They would have saw to it that no statue of Lincoln was ever fashioned and put up in Washington's District of Criminals. But because it is Washington's District of Criminals, they put a monument up to one of the biggest tyrants America has ever seen. Have you seen, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know how racist to his core Abraham Lincoln was, then look at his debate. It was the Lincoln debate with what was that guy's name? I did a video on it. Douglas. The debate, 1856 debate with Lincoln and Douglas. You listen to that. You watch that video that I put up. that just goes over quotes about Abraham Lincoln. If the American government, if Jon Stewart was really interested in snipping off the root of systemic racism, they would not be glorifying a tyrant like Lincoln, a racist, pitiful tyrant like Lincoln.
But what we will do is you can have an office in the building, and every few months, we're going to have to sit and listen to you talk for like an hour. And so we're good, right? Like, it's a country that won't face the I'll explain.
No, it's Stephen Douglas. It was Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln. It was an 1956? It was an 1856 debate between Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln. Matter of fact, I wasn't planning on going over that. I wasn't even thinking about talking about Lincoln. Stephen Douglas. Let's see. What do we got here? We'll just go over some of these. Snopes.com. What does it say? Did Abraham Lincoln express opposition to racial equality? Snopes. What a joke. The Snopes joke. Snopes is a psychological operation too. In 1858, Lincoln expressed his opposition to racial equality and asserted the superiority of white people. True. Oh, wow. They get it right. Look at this. During his famous debate with Senator Stephen Douglas, Lincoln explained to the crowd, "I am not, nor ever have been," here's the famous quote, "that most Americans don't know. Most Americans don't know their history, even though the 15,000-hour indoctrination program called the Public Fool System will tell you that Lincoln was a hero." Lincoln, think about this. They tell us they're against racism, they're against systemic racism, they're for equality, and yet they will glorify and almost immortalize this Abraham Lincoln. One of the premier landmarks and sites in America and even in the world is the Lincoln Memorial, where they got Lincoln sitting on this big throne, this big chair. He says, "This is Lincoln. I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races. I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. And I will say in addition to this," he's like, "but wait, there's more. That there is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races from living together in terms of social and political equality." He believed in the core of his being. This is Abraham Lincoln. He believed in the core of his being that white people and black people should never mix and should never be on the same footing socially or politically. And he goes further. "Inasmuch as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior." That's between the white and black races. There must be one that's over another, Lincoln says. Let's see how he parses this out. And I, as much as any other man, that tells me he doesn't believe that black men are men. He didn't believe that. Because a black guy's he's not going to go, the white is the superior race, unless they're, they've been indoctrinated or something. But Lincoln says, "And I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race." And wouldn't it be something if they put that as like an just concreted it into the side of the Washington Monument or the Lincoln Memorial? What if they put next to the statue of every Lincoln statue that I am as much in favor as any other man in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race? And yet, what do we think that the Civil War was started over? Oh, it was started because the great emancipator said that he wanted to go into the South and free the slaves. That's what the Civil War. No, he didn't care if they were slave or free. He did not care. As a matter of fact, he was all for white people being superior to the other race. That's Abraham Lincoln. And yet people like Jon Stewart and their psychological operation bent on deceiving the American people will try to obscure that or hide that from the public while they glorify Lincoln. You don't see anybody anybody suggesting that we take down the Lincoln Memorial. Nobody. And if there was ever a reason to take down the Lincoln Memorial, I would think that that one quote would be it. You can't even get more clear than that. And there's way more to this, guys. There's way more to this. Let's see if they have the rest of the. There's several damning quotes from Abraham Lincoln. See, despite the frequent spinning of the speeches by both newspapers, there appears to be consensus on Lincoln's Charleston remarks regarding racial equality. The Chicago Times reported and reprinted does not significantly vary from that published by the Press Tribune. I'll have to read over this to see if there's anything pertinent. I don't want to waste anybody's time here, but we'll continue on with. Put a 1 in the room if you knew that Abraham Lincoln thought that the white race is superior in every way, politically and socially, than the black race. Put a 1 in the room if you knew that. Put a 2 in the room if you didn't. And there's no shame in not knowing. We're all ignorant of certain things. We've all been indoctrinated. We all have cognitive dissonance cobwebs we constantly have to clear out because, we're immersed in the matrix. If you knew about it, put a 1 in the room. If you didn't, put a 2. Brian will never name the J, even though he has many, many, many times. It's so funny. Don't tread on Rick. Didn't know it. I'm glad that you do now. You should actually look at the actual document. Look at the debate between Abraham Lincoln, the written debate between Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. I would venture to say that most Americans, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would venture to say that most Americans do not know that Abraham Lincoln was a die-hard, dyed-in-the-wool, top to bottom, inside and out racist. And yet we immortalize him. Isn't that ironic? Isn't that ironic?
Explain it like the NFL, right? You know the Rooney Rule? The Rooney Rule in the NFL is because there are so few African Americans.
The NFL, what is the NFL, other than corporate media, the NFL is the premier military industrial complex propagandist. The NFL is the propaganda arm for the military industrial complex, hands down.
Coaches, you have to at least interview like one of them. So that's the rule now. It's the thing you put in place instead of looking at the owner's box and realizing, oh, right, that's just the legacy of the economic segregation that's been in our country since its founding. So we're never going to deal with that. So here's what we are going to do. A diversity and equity initiative, we're going to have to talk to one black guy.
Yeah, so ETG in the chat room, if you keep spamming, I'll put you in timeout. I don't censor, but spamming is different because you're interrupting the chat room. If you spam one more time that same line, you're gonna be gone. Yeah, you're gone. I'll just put you in timeout. Let's see. Put user in timeout. It's so troll-like. Here, name this name when I could do something else that names them and everybody gets the idea. But unless you say exactly what I tell you to, then you're a troll. Then you're being disingenuous. Hey, guys, if you can come up with a way to say something that doesn't get you banned off, and separated from your audience, and yet that audience still gets the message loud and clear, you've still said it. Applying wisdom in this world is definitely something we all need to learn to do better.
So are we good? I think we're good. But that's what I'm trying to say is the thing that they're pointing at is the thing that's in place because we won't do the actual thing.
And what's the actual thing? He doesn't say. He knows what the actual thing is, but he wouldn't dare say it because his bread and butter comes from this psychological operations, this mental warfare that's constantly going on. He can't say, we've got to figure out a way to get rid of the central banking system. Guys, there has been nothing comes close to causing as much bloodshed and damage and destruction to other nations as the FRN, the Federal Reserve Note. The fiat currency oil-based petrodollar Ponzi scheme. Nothing has caused more bloodshed, the loss of rights, the loss of economic stability, nothing. You cannot fund an army if you don't have the money, if your supply of money is finite. But if you have an infinite source of money, an infinite supply of money, and you can print it or put digits into people's bank account, now you can fund wars. See, now America is in big trouble because we kept kicking the can down the road for years. But now China and Russia and Saudi Arabia and South America and India are getting together going, you know what? We don't need the dollar. We don't need the dollar at all. And when people start realizing they don't need the dollar and all of those Federal Reserve notes start coming home, because they're still going to be out there. When all those Federal Reserve note roosters come home to roost, those chickens come home to roost, we are going to have a hyperinflationary, not inflationary, hyperinflationary. We are not talking about $5 loaf of bread or $15 loaf of bread or $20 gallon of milk. We are talking about $2,000 a gallon milk, 2 million, 2 trillion. What did they start issuing in Zimbabwe? $100 trillion notes. Just so that you could buy food. Not $1 million notes, not $1 billion, not 10 billion, not 100 billion, $100 trillion notes. That same thing, America will not escape that. And so now we have the Hegelian dialectic setting up, because it always is, and it's always on the back burner and the front burner and the side burners. But you got problem, reaction, solution. The problem is, oh my God, the dollar is crashing. The fear-based reaction, oh my God, all my life savings that I spent my entire life and my 401k is tied up into this and my retirement is tied up into this. It is completely deteriorated and evaporated before my very eyes. That's the reaction. The solution, CBDCs. Don't worry, we got this. We've been planning this for a long, long time. Central bank digital currencies. We will put money into your account that you can spend today, but it's going to be tied to the social credit system, and it will be a surveillance digital coin where you can't do anything. You can't go anywhere. You can't be near people buying, selling, trading, transporting unless you're surveilled with a CBDC. They will have 100% control over you. If you post something on social media they don't like, credits will come out of your system, just like what's happening in China. See, they're making the BRICS nations are coming against the US dollar, and that is bad for America. If you have dollars, it's probably a good idea. No, it's definitely a good idea right now. And I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, but it might be a good idea to convert those fiat currency notes into food, storable water, water filtration systems, gold, silver, and the other precious metal, lead, and some pew-pews, if you know what I mean. We'll watch the rest of this right here.
You sound like somebody who has a lot of anger and a lot of rage, and yet you're very funny. And like, how do you keep all that together? Like, there's a part of you that's very optimistic.
I'm very optimistic.
But you sound angry.
Yeah, there's a catch-22 behind that Ponzi zombie killer. I don't disagree with you. Ponzi zombie killer says we need deflation and purchasing power. Jerome, that's Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, should be raising rates by at least 1 full percentage point per meeting. The double-edged see, this is like cancer. It's so enwrapped all of our vital organs that ripping it out can cause the patient to die. So when you have increased interest rates and it becomes more expensive to borrow money, then that slows the economy down. When it slows the economy down and people start losing their jobs en masse. So now you got a whole bunch of people that are jobless, and you got a whole bunch of money out there that people don't have access to. And now the economy starts to freeze and slow down. On the other end of it, they start lowering it, and then the inflation gets out of hand. We are entering unknown territory right now. So I agree with you, Ponzi. I agree with what you're saying, but there are complexities into this that need the application of wisdom. See, we need minds like Ron Paul. We need minds like, the people over at the Mises Institute. How do we make this transfer from unsound, dishonest money to sound, honest money without destroying everything in the process? It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do because the cancer of the Federal Reserve and their fingerprints are all over everything.
I don't mean to sound like your therapist.
No, I understand. But wouldn't you, why isn't everybody about real things? I mean, you want to be upset about real things, but isn't that what drives comedy or art or anything, is emotion, whether it's anger or joy or love or what are there other emotions? There's got to be more than that. Sadness probably is in there.
Envy.
Hate, envy. Okay. That says something there.
I was just filling in the gaps.
No, I understand. It's just top of mind. It was top of mind. These are, it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch a state. You talked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Let me give some wrenches here. Gail's been with me for a long time. Let me give Gail a wrench here. And if I don't give you a wrench, it's please don't take it personal, guys. Let me see. Managing moderator, add as a standard moderator. Crypto King's been with me for a long time. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to keep up with the spamming. The only thing I want to limit, you guys, I'm not into censorship at all. But this is like, a chat room is like being in a room with 10 of your friends and then one person who's got, acting in bad faith and is just screaming at the top of his lungs, and then none of us can have a conversation. It's perfectly legitimate to remove somebody like that. I'm not against freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want to, but when you do it and it's getting in the way of people, being able to have a decent conversation, that they're acting in bad faith. So let me see if this is working. Thanks, Crypto King. And I'll give out some more wrenches a little bit later. I just want to, there's only a couple, there's 1 minute left in this.
Hard to watch a state that's like 48th in, infant mortality and child poverty and literacy,
and won't
make a
take
big
Medicaid
deal about
dollars.
A trans girl that wants to play soccer that happens like once every 5 years there. Like, it's hard to not be angry about people that try and distract from the real things that people face with weaponized nonsense.
I get that. My point is, but then you also...
That's actually a good way to put it. It's weaponized nonsense. CRT is weaponized nonsense. This stuff that's going on with Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light is weaponized nonsense. By the way, I've noticed people on the right saying that, Bud Light is really taking a hit. If you look at Anheuser-Busch, if you look at the stock chart for Anheuser-Busch, they're literally on 6-month highs. They're on 1-year highs. They've only lost about, I don't know how much each dollar of shares. I know their market cap is about $128 billion. And you can't even say, people on the right are taking a victory lap because market shares have slidden just a little bit with Anheuser-Busch, but they're taking a victory lap because they say that their boycotting is actually working. This chart to me does not tell me that boycotting is working, and it also doesn't tell me that they went from 66.73 a share to 64.56, which is very small compared to their share price. That it's directly attributed to the boycott. Now, could the boycott have done some of this? Could have, but we're only talking about, it's only been happening for the last week or two. And there's usually this lag time before you can actually see the direct effects of any kind of boycott or marketing faux pas or whatever. But I like I'm not into the Wall Street Journal or anything like that. I believe this is all psychological operations. But I think that what this person said, this executive marketing agency for this, this marketing agency chief executive said, Bud Light just needs to withstand the 72-hour media storm. It's going to be more than that. And to hold on to what they already know, that the product cycle for profit is longer than the media cycle. That's just true. You're not going to boycott Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch or InBev, which is what the agency is that controls all Bud Light and Budweiser interests in Anheuser-Busch. You're not going to scratch them out of existence. You're not going to cause them a lot of financial pain for this boycott, because in about a year from now, you're going to forget about, not even a year, in a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, you're not going to even think about this boycott. And then they said another thing over here, which was really interesting. Yeah, unless you have a really well-organized boycott with clear messaging, I think the messaging's pretty clear. I think I think what Anheuser-Busch did was a big, big mistake. I've never understood companies that will pacify this segment of the population at the expense of this segment of the population. We're talking about if it's 1%, if it's 2% max, I would be surprised at who they're trying to placate and bow down to. For this, at the sake of 98% who would be against this 2%. See, that's the power of propaganda, is they want you to think the 2% is the 98%. It's not true. Even people within that 2% are like, this dude is not a dudette. And why are you doing this? What's the agenda here? Why don't you just stick to making beer and go, hey, we're not into socio-political issues. We're into making beer, and we think you'll appreciate that. Why do they do that? Oh, that's right, because the CEO is CIA. That's part of it. So they say, unless you have a really well-organized, but it gets views and clicks to tell people that Anheuser-Busch lost $5 billion in market capitalization last week because of our boycott. Yeah, that gets a lot of views, a lot of clicks. Even channels that are super small that were only getting like 2,000 views a day are now getting 800,000 views a day. There's this one channel that's doing, the guy barely speaks English. But because he's speaking to that rightist side of the crowd, he's going to become increasingly popular. But when I say things like this, even though Matt Walsh is going, man, Anheuser-Busch is really taking a beating with this boycott. No, they're not. If you look at the S&P, I don't think Anheuser-Busch is on the S&P 500 index, but it is on like a Fortune 800 or Fortune 500 index. And if you look at indexes or indices, they pretty much track with each other. This doesn't look like a decline because of the boycott. And then people are posting their videos in their local grocery stores with the Bud Light cases absolutely full and all the other beers gone. How do we know what the story is behind that? I don't know. This boycott is not going to, unless it is organized and it stays consistent for years and years, you're not going to put any kind of dent in $128 billion market capitalization Anheuser-Busch, which is controlled by InBev right here. And if you think I'm wrong, let me know, guys. I'm not the arbiter of truth. And truth doesn't begin and end with me. If you think I'm wrong, let me know. I understand why people are upset. I think it's absurd what they did in making the face of Budweiser and putting his face on it, going so far as to put his face on a can, not a can for public sale, they say, but putting this guy's face on a can. And some people are getting taken off of social media by calling this guy a guy. That's how bad. That's the psychological operations aspect of this, is that you can't even speak the clear and plain and obvious and objective truth without being called a fill-in-the-blank phobe. The boycott just becomes kind of vindictive and performative. It does. The Matt Walshes of the world, the Benny Johnsons of the world that are really playing this thing up and making it look like it's something that it really isn't, they're generating a lot of clicks. They're generating a lot of popularity. But guess who else is generating popularity and clicks? Anheuser-Busch and Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney is more popular than ever now because we're all talking about it. But how can you not talk about it? It's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like, then stop talking about it and it'll go away. Yeah, but how can you not talk about it? It is a symptom in our society of things that need to be talked about. It's not the major problem. It's just a symptom of the major problem. And the major problem is what? Oh, the first casualty in any war, including the information war, is the truth. All right, we'll finish this out.
Into humor.
Sometimes. Sometimes I just turn it into anger. And then sometimes I just turn it into gummies. And late at night, I just take a bunch of those. And that helps.
Yeah, well, I think the rest of this is nonsense. But guess what they didn't talk about? They didn't talk about the 18,000 cattle that just died in what they term as by far the deadliest barn fire for cattle overall. 18,000 through an explosion. 18,000 cattle in Dimmitt, Texas died like that on April 11th. Did anybody see this on the news? Anybody see? Did Jon Stewart mention this? I would say this is far more of a problem than CRT. Why? Because what's going to happen to beef prices? Do you remember that fire that took out that egg laying facility? where the egg laying facility was responsible for putting 3 million eggs into the market every single day, and every one of those barns burned down. Tens of thousands of chickens, 3 million eggs offline. And what happened to egg prices in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks? 60. We buy eggs by the carton because it's one of the best sources of protein and one of the cheapest sources of protein. There's two things that I call the poor man's protein, and that's eggs and chicken. Well, chicken went from $1.99 a pound to $2.97 a pound. It actually went up to $3.29, but it came back down to $2.99 a pound. $1.99 to $2.99 a pound for chicken? I would say that's bigger news than CRT. Eggs went from $5.98 last year at this time, March of 2022. Eggs at my store were $5.98 for 60 eggs. Now they went up to $24 and then went down to $12. Now I saw yesterday they're back up to $18 for 60. So it went at its lowest, let's just $5.98, but $6 to $24. They increased 400% in price. The poor man's protein. Who does that affect? Poor men. It affects everybody, but it more affects the middle and lower class. And it actually brings the middle class down into the lower poverty-stricken class. This is class warfare, guys. And even me saying class warfare, that's probably a psychological operation that I've bought into that I probably should modify my thinking on. But all I mean to say is that people who were once considered middle class, they're aiming on evaporating the middle class. So it's only going to be the powers that shouldn't be, and then us, the poor. That is a 400% increase in 365 days. And nobody's going to talk about this. Cattle price. What's going to happen to beef prices now? Oh, expect them to go through the roof. If you've got in one day, look what this says right here. Initial reports say that upwards of 18,000 cattle were lost in a fire last night at the South Fork Dairy in Dimmitt. At this time, we only know a small percentage of the cows at the facility survived. 18,000 cattle die overnight? And who's the biggest farm owner in America? You know who it is. Gil who? Gil Bates. That's right. Gil Bates is the single largest farm owner in America. And is Gil Bates on your side? Is that not another psychological operation? Josephus sends a Cash App. Thank you, Josephus. I appreciate that. And Seth sent a Cash App. I appreciate you guys funding this content. Yeah, without you, there's no way I'm going to be able to get this stuff out. What else we got here? Yeah, we'll just talk about this real quick. They're making a big deal out of this. This was an article about the CEO of Anheuser-Busch from October 1st, 2022. And it started gaining popularity and traction on social media day before yesterday. But from CEO to beer, Brendan Whitworth's path to CEO of Anheuser-Busch. And then it talks about this guy. Once CIA agent, always a CIA agent. But you don't have to have this guy as a CIA to know that this is a psychological operation from the CIA, from the FBI, from the domestic terror cell that seeks to destroy America and Americans and not benefit them. All right, let's see. Let me go to the chat here. If you guys, by the way, if you guys get something out of and you like these live streams, put a 1 in the room. Let me know. I don't want to presume upon anybody in my audience that, oh, you guys want to hear my voice. I just feel like these things are valuable for somebody to say. And if I see it, it just kind of burns in my heart. And it's like when I go live, it's because I feel like I have to. Because I'm disheartened when I look at, people of the conservative bent. And it's not that I'm coming out against them. It's just that I think that, man, we can be doing a way, way better job. I'm not against everything that they say, but I think there's some certain things that are inflationary and alarmist. Well, I don't know, that they're talking about that probably we should be talking about other things. This isn't live. This is a replay, somebody said. No, this is live. This is live. This isn't a replay. This is a live stream, guys. Thanks, Cottage Farms. You the man. We all the man. I'll tell you that. Ain't none of us greater than all of us. Never has been, never will be. One of the things that we got to get right before the CBDC comes online is you got to get to know your neighbors. And I'm the world's worst at this, guys. I'm kind of a recluse. I go outside every once in a while, and if I see my neighbor, I'll wave to him. But we need to walk up to them, introduce ourselves, kind of get the feel for where they're at, and kind of inform them about, hey, you know what? I want you to know if something goes down in this neighborhood and you need me for something. And I know this is scary for a lot of people because they don't want other people in their business. They don't want to be in other people's business. They just want to live their lives. But I think we're getting to such a critical juncture in our society that we've got to know our neighbors. You got to know you're going to be able to count on them. They got to know that they can count on you. And with the CBDC things comes online, and we need to educate the masses, give people knowledge that if there was anything we can get together and resist, it would be this thing. What's up, Son of Perdition? I asked GPT for 18,000 cows is almost 9 million pounds of edible beef. That's crazy. That is crazy. Darkado says, I don't like interacting with them much. Speaking of Darkado, he just sent a Cash App. Thank you, Darkado. $5 Cash App. Thank you. Food will be like gold. Grow food, says Kronos. Lots of shiny copper brewing vats. You know, another thing you really need to invest in and convert because guys, if you don't think there's going to be a major uprising when people can't afford food, they can't access real food, and people start getting hungry. Hungry people are desperate people, and desperate people will do anything to feed themselves and their families. If you're going to invest in anything, the other precious metal, i.e. lead, is a good thing to have, and you'll never, ever be able to have enough. Ever. Probably in the order of importance, I would say the very first thing you need to convert your fiat currency into is water filtration, because you can always find a puddle of rainwater somewhere, and there are awesome carbon filters. You could put that carbon filter, it won't last long because it'll get gummed up real quick. You can put it in raw sewage and you'll make yourself drinking water. Better to find a puddle after a rain or whatever, but water filtration, on-site camping water filtration, and I'm not selling those. Go get it and go look on Amazon. Best water filtration that I can stick a straw. There's something called LiveStraw, I think it's called, where you can actually take this straw. It's got a carbon filter built in it, and you can suck out of a puddle and not get sick. I don't recommend drinking straight out of a puddle. But if you have one of these LiveStraws, whatever. So I think in list of importance, water filtration, stored water. But that stored water is not going to last you for very long. Maybe water capture devices where you got something hooked up to your gutter and you got this whole vat of water that you can draw from, at least, to tide you over for a little while. Storable food, dry storable food, pew-pews, and the freedom seeds that go along with them. I would say those in the order of importance. Water filtration, storable water, or a way to capture storable water, dry storable food, pew-pews, and freedom seeds. At the very minimum, that's what you're going to need. Growing a garden, yes, absolutely. But when it comes to watering your garden and watering yourself, you're going to water yourself first when things get really, really desperate. Remember, they also, according to Owning the Weather by 2025, weather is a force multiplier. They claim to be on track for owning the weather by 2025. I think that already happened decades ago. Wherever they want it to rain, it'll rain. Wherever they want it to be a drought, it'll be a drought. And that's the kind of power that they claim to have. According to the popular science, according to the military-industrial complex, according to weather as a force multiplier, they say they have that technology. And if they had it back then during Vietnam, where they can extend the monsoon season, according to popular science, what do you think kind of technology they got right now? This is not, oh, you're freaking conspiracy. Why do you call people conspiracy theorists when they're drawing from the documents of the people who would call you a conspiracy theorist? Rock salt. There you go. Oh, yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, stuff that I forgot. Stock salt. Stock salt. What else do you guys think? What else should we put on our list of order of importance? Vitamins, nutrients, some kind of a protein source, carbohydrate source. Pew Pew's hard to get there in California. That's why I left California. That's why I left it, Watcher. Well, one of the reasons. The IMF just launched the Unicoin 2 days ago. IMF unveils new global currency known as the Universal Monetary Unit. What? To transform the world economy. Yeah, that's another thing that I didn't mention is the International Monetary Fund. Let's see. Let's look at this. This is on Twitter, Zero Hedge. Let's look at Zero Hedge. You guys want to look at this? I'm not aware of this. This is new to me. I'm aware of things like it, but not this itself. IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund, and unveils new global currency known as the Universal Monetary Unit, or UMU, to transform world economy. The Universal Monetary Unit, also known as the Unicoin, is an international central bank digital currency that has been designed to work in conjunction with all existing national currencies. How convenient for such an hour as this. How convenient. This should set off alarm bells for all of us, says Zero Hedge, because the widespread adoption of a new global currency would be a giant step toward a globalist agenda. I totally agree. The IMF did not create this new currency, but it was unveiled at a major IMF gathering earlier this week. And this is from today, the International Monetary Fund Spring Meeting 2023, the Digital Currency Monetary Authority, or DCMA, announced their official launch of an international central bank digital currency, or CBDC, that strengthens the monetary sovereignty of participating central banks. This is dystopian language. And complies with the recent crypto asset policy recommendations proposed by the IMF. Well, of course it does. They created the rules. Now they've created their own unicurrency. Universal Monetary Unit, or UMU, symbolizes an ANSI character, is legally a money commodity, can transact in any legal tender settlement currency, and functions like a CBDC to enforce banking regulations and to protect the financial integrity of the international banking system. And you know why people will go for this? People will go for this because those are the people that are going to be desperate that the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve and the IRS and the Treasury Department and all the other currency agencies will want you to get on board with, because they see that you need the money. They see that you know that your dollar is worthless and you're getting desperate and you can't spend $500 for a carton of eggs. And here's the solution. And people will go for it because they'll be hungry. People will go for it because they'll be thirsty. People will go for it because they'll be desperate. This is crazy George Orwell 1984 lunacy. Eggs stayed within $3 or $4 a dozen here. $5 or $6 for the organic. Fast food workers make twice that much. Let's see what you guys are saying here. DCBZ says, need to build self-propelled electromagnetic generators instead of fuel generators. Guys, I bet they have technology to provide power, to provide electricity to everybody without cost. That doesn't have anything to do with solar. That doesn't have anything to do with the oil. Maybe you need oil initially to set something in place to create a perpetual motion machine that needs very little or no outside force to generate that electricity. But I bet they got it. Nikola Tesla built something like that so that he could supply free energy. The last thing governments of the world want is for you to have access to free energy. Why? Because they want you to be dependent on them. They don't want independent individuals or groups of individuals that don't need the government. That's their scheme. They want you to be reliant on them. They want you to rely on their power. They want you to rely on their water. They want you to rely on their infrastructure. And they want you to rely on their monetary system. Tesla invented it, and there he died, said Tony. Gasifier will run your whole house on firewood. Hemp fuel already pretty much free energy, says Durbin. Yeah, that's another thing. That's why do you think they'll make anything that benefits you, they'll make illegal? How beneficial, for example, how beneficial do you think it is for people to have access to CBD oil or THC oil or anything related to the cannabis plant? Very beneficial. So we know that cannabis has like 50,000 beneficial uses for mankind. What does the state do? Makes it illegal. Now, if you're in possession of it, whether it's psychoactive or not, even if it's just hemp, they made hemp illegal and you got to have a license to grow it. Why would they do that? Because they hate our guts. We are enemies of the state. If you want to be free and you don't want to ask another man for permission, then you are a perpetrator. You're a perp. You're an enemy of the state. If you want to be left alone on your own property, they can't do that because now you have to pay property taxes. And if you don't pay property taxes, then you're beholden to the man. And if you're beholden to the man and you get behind on your payments, then they foreclose on you and bring men with guns to usher you off of your property by force. That's why Washington said government is not eloquence. It's not reason. It is force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. That's what you're dealing with when you're talking about government. A synonym for government agents is psychopaths, because only a psychopath would seek to control somebody against their will and without their consent. You would be considered a psychopath if you did that to your neighbors. If you went over to your neighbors and you forced them even to pay for something that was good. Let's say, I've used this as an analogy before. If you live in between, say you're in a subdivision or whatever, if you live in between, or an apartment or whatever, you live in between two neighbors, neighbor A and neighbor B. Neighbor B has a child named Johnny who needs crutches or he can't get around. So you steal from neighbor A, or you swindle them, or you coerce them out of their money in some way dishonest. You do something to him that you wouldn't want done to yourself so that you can give neighbor B Johnny's crutches. Well, you've done a good thing, but you've transgressed the moral code by stealing from your neighbor. That is the excuse governments make with taxation. Well, we're providing a public service. Without the government, who would build the roads? Without government, how could you have schools? Without government, how could you have clean running water? Without the government, fill in the blank. So they don't even say it's stealing. They see it as your moral obligation to pay your fair share. Nobody's paying anything. You're doing it under duress. You're giving the thief your wallet because you don't want to be shot in the head. That's under duress. You're not paying the thief for his services. That's what the government's saying is you pay your fair share. You pay your taxes. No, you're not. It's taken from you by force. And if everybody was left to themselves, nobody every April would fill out their forms because you'd want to keep 100% of your income and you would not want to be stolen from. Same principle. So even if the excuse is, I got to give Johnny his crutches, therefore I must steal from my neighbor on my right side here, it's not legitimate because you've still stolen. It doesn't matter what you stole the money for. It could be for the best purpose in the entire world. You've still done to others what you wouldn't want done to you. And that's what the government specializes in. If that doesn't make sense, Tax Slave says plunder for real. Yeah, it is. It's legalized plunder. So what is the answer, Brian? You're doing all this bitching and you come up with, you tell us all the problems. We already know all this. What is the solution? Well, the solution is found very simply, and I'll just quote Sam Adams. A general dissolution of principles and manners will more surely overthrow the freedoms of America than all the force of the common enemy. A general dissolution of principles and manners will more surely overthrow the freedoms of Americans than all the force of the common enemy. So Sam Adams said that. Is it a true statement? Yes. How do we know it's a true statement? Because if you let go of the right position, which is what principle is, if you let go of the moral high ground and you compromise on that, and therefore you compromise yourself and your character, then they got something over on you. But if you maintain that high ground if you maintain principles, if you maintain morals, then what kicks in is no people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is preserved and virtue is secured. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. So what's the answer to all this stuff? Maintain principle, maintain your moral code, maintain the truth. And when you maintain that, the lie can't survive in that atmosphere. But as soon as you compromise, as soon as you bring yourself down, as soon as you abandon principle and truth and morality, that's when they got you. That's when we have a central bank digital currency. That's how we got the Federal Reserve. In 1913, a lot of people were against it, guys. There's a case that can be made that the Titanic went down because the 3 people who were against the Federal Reserve Act were on that ship, and they went down with that ship, and that ship supposedly was owned by JP Morgan. And it wasn't the Titanic, they say, it was the Olympia. And the Olympia was damaged in some kind of accident with a U.S. naval vessel, and insurance wasn't paying it out. So there was a twofold reason, they say, for the Olympia, masquerading as the Titanic, to go down. The 2 reasons are, insurance wasn't going to pay the Olympia. Let's change the name to the Titanic. Let's have the maiden voyage, which includes, who are the 3 guys that were on the ship? I can't remember. One of them was Astor. 2 other ones were super influential. The ship goes down, and then the following year, the Federal Reserve Act goes down, and the Federal Reserve comes online. It seems like a pretty believable story. I don't know if it's true, but I wouldn't put it past them. Anybody know the 3 guys who were on that ship, the Olympia, which was masquerading, they say, as the Titanic? Astor was one of them. I can't remember the other guys. John Jacob Astor, yeah, he was one of them. 10 points on your next spelling test if you can tell me the other 2 guys. Has anybody ever heard of that? If you look it up, tell them about Jekyll Island. If you want to know about Jekyll Island, one of the first book that started significantly dropping the scales from my eyes was from G. Edward Griffin, called The Creature from Jekyll Island. If you haven't read that, it's a super thick book, heavily resourced at the back of the book. Captain Edward Smith. I don't know if he had any kind of influence in being against the Federal Reserve System. Yeah, John Jacob Astor, I know he was one of them, but there were 3 was Carnegie one of them? I can't remember. Maybe Carnegie was in on the Federal Reserve thing. I don't remember his name being up. John Jacob Astor the 4th, Isidor Straus, and Victor Giglio? I don't remember the Victor guy. I do remember Strauss. Was Isidor Straus, was he part of the Levi Strauss Corporation? Pretty interesting stuff. History is written by the victors. Exactly, Valentino. You got to question everything. Carnegie was definitely in on it, yeah. Carnegie, Rothschilds. Yeah, I've heard it. It's pretty compelling. When you look into the Titanic thing, it's pretty compelling that it wasn't the Titanic. There were some differences, some slight differences, but it does look like the Olympia got its name changed to the Titanic. And it does look like there was a very good reason for that ship to go down. And all the circumstances surrounding the actual sinking of that ship, but like the, running into the iceberg, some people early on after the thing said they heard an explosion. Let's see. Does anybody want to, I wasn't planning on doing this. It wasn't going to be a part of this live stream, but does anybody want to look into this? Claims that the Titanic was secretly, here's AP News. They're going to tell us that everything's a conspiracy theory. says that the ship never sank. I actually like to look at the other side of it. I like to look at the claim, and then I like to look at the people who say, no, this claim is bogus. And then I like to come up with my own conclusion. I do not like to be in an echo chamber. That is so dangerous. Actually, humans, from speaking on just a purely human level, it is comfortable being in an echo chamber. It's comfortable to have everybody agree with you, but nothing could be more dangerous. What happened to the Titanic sister ship? Britannica.com. Britannica, I would see Britannica.com as a fake stream source, but let's see what they say. Olympic and full Royal Mail ship Olympic. It was an RMS. British luxury liner, was a sister ship of the Titanic. There were three of them. There was the Titanic, the Olympic, and the Britannic. It was in service from 1911 to 1935 to compete with the Cunard Line for the highly profitable transatlantic passenger ride. The White Star Line decided to create a class of liners noted more for comfort than speed. The first ships ordered were the Olympic and the Titanic. The Britannic was added later. The Belfast firm Harland and Wolff began construction of the Olympic on December 16th, 1908. And that shipbuilding back then, before they had electronic technology and computer technology and programs and all that stuff, that is so astounding to me. The buildings they built, the ships they constructed, the things that you could do back in the 1600s, as far as naval vessels and navigation were concerned, are mind-blowing to me. It's almost like, did these people have alien technology in the 1600s? You're going to tell me that you navigated at night in a storm with a sextant and you got to where you wanted to go? It took you a while, but you got there? With the laying of the keel, let's see, so 1608, and here's some of the construction. God, I love history like this, if it's true. After work finished on the hull, the main superstructure, the Olympic was launched on October 20th, 1910. At the time of its completion in 1911, the Olympic was perhaps the world's most luxurious liner. It was also the largest, with the length of approximately 882 feet and a gross tonnage of 45,342 tons. It could carry more than 2,300 passengers. To much fanfare, the Olympic embarked on its maiden voyage on June 14th, 1911, traveling from Southampton, England to New York City. The ship was captained by Edward J. Smith, who would later helm the Titanic when it went down. In September 1911, during its fifth commercial voyage, the Olympic collided with the HMS Hawke near the Isle of Wight, southern England. It was later determined that suction from the Olympic had pulled the Hawke into the ocean liner. Both ships suffered major damage, and the Olympic did not return to service until November 1911. After the Titanic sank in 1912, the Olympic underwent major safety improvements. In addition to an increased number of lifeboats, the ship's double bottom was lengthened, and 5 of its watertight compartments, which featured doors that allowed the sections to be isolated from each other. Then why weren't they employed? If you could have these bellies basically isolated, then why wouldn't that ship stay up? Which features doors that allowed the sections to be isolated from each other. So even if you had a major, like 3 major compartments completely filled with water, the other major rooms or bellies with all that air in them would keep that ship afloat. But it went straight down? Were raised from E decks to B decks. The ship resumed its transatlantic crossings in April 1913. Despite the start of the World War in 1914, the liner continued to operate commercial voyages, and in October it helped rescue survivors of the HMS Audacious, which had struck a mine near Tory Island, Ireland. In 1915, the Olympic was, or they say it was the Olympic, was requisitioned as a troop ship. It subsequently made a number of solo Atlantic crossings to ferry Canadians and U.S. troops to Europe. In May 1918, the Olympic signed a German U-boat near the island of Sicily and rammed and sank the enemy vessel. Whatever happened to that thing? It subsequently underwent major renovations before resuming commercial voyages in 1920. Despite competition from larger ships, the Olympic remained a popular vessel, making frequent Atlantic crossings. On May 15th, 1934, in a heavy fog, the Olympic struck and sank the Nantucket Lightship, a boat that was positioned to mark the shoals near Cape Cod, Massachusetts. 7 of the 11 crewmen aboard the lightship were killed, and the Olympic was later blamed for the incident. In April 1935, the Olympic was retired from the service. It was later sold for scrapping, and many of the fixtures and fittings were bought and put on displays by various establishments, notably. I didn't know that last part about the Olympic. So supposedly, the Olympic was really the Titanic, and the Titanic was really the Olympic. And something they didn't go over here was that insurance wasn't going to cover the destruction that happened on the Olympic when it rammed into it drew the HMS Hawk into its hull. Interesting stuff. Interesting, if true. Very interesting. Another day on the YouTube outlet trying to avoid the dead ends and roundabouts in this technological gauntlet, says DCRA. Yeah, I think Palestine should be free too. I think East Palestine, Ohio should be free of toxic water and toxic air. Oh, Gail dropped an excellent article about the Titanic. Let's see. Oh, wait a second. Let's bring that over on the screen. Thanks, Gail. The eerie link between the Federal Reserve and the sinking of the Titanic. Put a one. If I get 50, how many people are in here? Thanks for the likes, guys. If I get 50 likes in the next, say what's up, Blind Justice. Check out the Blind Justice YouTube channel. Blind Justice is all about holding public servants accountable in his area, including politicians and police officers. Those who need leaders, he says, aren't qualified to choose them. That's pretty good. That's a good way to put it. So if I get 50 ones in the room, I'll go over this article. Wasn't planning on doing this, but I don't know about you guys, but I find this kind of stuff fascinating, especially if it's true. You know, fictional stories are very compelling and very interesting, but if you come across a true story, something that you can verify, something that makes you sit back and go, wow, if that's true, this is crazy. So if there's 50 ones in the room, I'll go over this article. So we got 3 ones. Not a whole lot of interest, Brian. Not a whole lot of interest. I love spending time with you guys. How are you, Brian? Love the stream. Thanks, Swaff. Doing good, man. Better than I deserve, for sure. Another train derailment? Where? How long have we been going? Oh my gosh, we've been going for an hour and a half, guys. I do not want to wear you guys out. I do not want to do that. There sure is a lot of sellouts in order to keep this ball rolling, says Valentino. So do you think we have 51s? Yeah, there's 51s. Yeah, there's definitely 51s. Okay. The eerie link between the Federal Reserve and the sinking of the Titanic. Updated artist impression showing. I don't see the artist impression. Wonder why that's not showing up. Let me make this text a little bit bigger for you so you can see it. The RMS Titanic set sail on April 11th, 1912. It sank 4 days later on April 15th after hitting an iceberg. Those are the facts we all learned in history class and from the cinema. Who watched that movie? That was an interesting movie. But there's a more dubious theory behind the luxury liner's unfortunate fate, one that continues to pique 21st century minds. It suggests that the infamous plutocrat financiers, alongside members of a deviant Catholic priesthood, played a crucial role in the unsinkable vessel's fate. And all for the sake of creating the Federal Reserve. Think about the incentive that would be afoot for the formation of the Federal Reserve. If you were the formulators of the Federal Reserve and you thought about the long-term, long-lasting implications and ramifications and benefits and profit that could be acquired through the creation of the Federal Reserve, in the spirit of Amschel Rothschild, who said, hey, give me control over a nation's money and I care not who makes its laws, you would pretty much do anything to acquire that financial security and the power that goes along with it. In 1910, 7 men met on Jekyll Island, and if you want to know all the crazy details about this is the creation of the Federal Reserve. G. Edward Griffin's book, Creature from Jekyll Island, will fill you in just fine. Matter of fact, we should get G. Edward Griffin is like 92, 93 years old. We should get him on a show. That would be such an interesting conversation. Love listening to that guy. So in 1910, 7 men met on Jekyll Island just off the coast of Georgia. There they planned the creation of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. They were Nelson Aldrich and Frank Vanderlip, who represented the Rockefellers' financial empire. It wasn't enough for them to, own the steel corporations at the time. Henry Davidson, Charles Norton, and Benjamin Strong, who represented J.P. Morgan interests. Paul Warburg, who represented the Rothschilds banking dynasty in Europe. And this is, by the way, this is all documented. And they later say, yes, this happened. If you go to Jekyll Island, Georgia right now, there will be a plaque on this door that says the Federal Reserve was created in this room. For these American dynasties, the creation of the Fed meant firsthand influence in the country's monetary policies. Morgan's banking empire was already acting as a pseudo-central bank to the American government at the time. 20 years prior to the Jekyll Island meeting, Morgan saved the country from a bank panic, and it makes you wonder if Morgan didn't initiate the banking panic to set up the first building blocks for people calling for something like the Federal Reserve so they can stabilize the monetary system. He formed a syndicate to prop up money reserves with a shipment of $62 million worth of gold. That's at a time when gold was pegged at, this is before the $35 an ounce Bretton Woods agreement from the 1940s. It fluctuated between 28 and 29 bucks for centuries per ounce, according to the US dollar. Morgan devised a plan to clandestinely repair the Olympic. Oh, wait, did I skip a paragraph? Swap it with the Titanic and sink that ship for the money he felt he was owed. The Rothschilds did the same. They acted as a syndicate to keep the American government propped up financially. The wealthy family had already financed and pioneered the industrialization of Europe. For them, the Federal Reserve meant an opportunity to exert such control in America. It's like, you think you're going to win the Revolutionary War, do you? Well, guess what? You got another thing coming. And a lot of the founding fathers spoke against a British-controlled monetary system, a central bank monetary system. Side note, the Rothschilds were the banking agents for the Jesuit order of Catholics that allegedly held, quote, the key to wealth of the Roman Catholic Church. We'll get back to the Jesuits in a moment. And then there were the oil giants, the Rockefellers, whose massive fortune already afforded them sway in several American institutions. It's like they owned oil interests, they owned steel, and they owned the railroads. Pretty much we got America over a barrel here. The creation of the Fed for them meant maintaining that influence. And then you remember, I think G. Edward Griffin brings this out. They formulated a society that created a propaganda campaign for the masses to get the masses to say, we must break the grip of the money trust. Well, everything Americans were saying about breaking the grip of the money trust were made by the money manipulators. That's how deep the psychological operation can go. One operation Morgan owned was an International Mercantile Marines, a trust he'd formed to monopolize trade routes. Therein, Morgan controlled the White Star Line, a maritime merchant company that operated exclusively within the North Atlantic trade routes. The White Star Line built the RMS Titanic and its sister ships, Olympic and Britannic. In 1911, the Olympic experienced 2 major incidents at sea. One of these incidents involved the HMS Hawke off the island of Wight. As was customary at the time, the British Royal Navy's own team investigated the crash and found that the Olympic was at fault. Because of this ruling, the insurance would not pay out to the White Star Line for the damages the ship incurred. This didn't bode well with Morgan. You would think that Morgan would have so much control and so much power that he would get the insurance company and have them over a barrel and have them pay out for the damage to the Olympic. And it's where the Titanic theory comes into play. Morgan devised a plan to clandestinely repair the Olympic, swap it with the Titanic, and sink that ship for the money he felt he was owed. Now, at the time that all this maritime drama was going down, the Federal Reserve was in its conceptual phase. Opposition stirred as the institution's establishment. So now we got this other bit of intrigue. Members of three more powerful American empires, Benjamin Guggenheim, that's the guy, Benjamin Guggenheim, a wealthy mining magnate's heir, Isidor Straus, the head of Macy's department stores, and I think Isidor Straus had something to do with the Levi Strauss fortune as well. I could be mistaken on that, but I think that's pretty along the lines of history. And John Jacob Astor, a millionaire fur trader, all opposed the Fed's creation. So J.P. Morgan, the Rothschilds, and the Rockefellers schemed up a way to get rid of these pesky opponents. Since J.P. Morgan had already cooked up an insurance fraud scheme, why not kill two birds with one stone? Or more accurately, three men with one already broken ship. As the conspiracy theory goes, after the Olympic was secretly repaired and swapped with the Titanic, the Rothschilds, Morgans, and Rockefellers coaxed Strauss, Astor, and Guggenheim aboard the luxury liner as guest vacationers on its maiden voyage. Now, I wonder how they did that. See, I hate when they leave out this kind of detail because, you know, you would think these guys are important. They got things to do. It's going to be hard to coordinate all three of these guys. Did they know each other? Seems like if they're smart, they'd be asking questions. Hey, why did they want us all three on the ship together? Did they know they were all three on the ship together? It just makes you wonder. That's why I question. I don't know if this is true, but it sure sounds interesting. Enter the Jesuits. Theorists surmise that Jesuit members were strategically placed in the Titanic's crew to see the plan through. One such member was Captain Edward Smith, who had captained the Olympic when she crashed both times. As a, quote, Jesuit temporal coadjutor, or Jesuit brother, Smith was bound to serve his sect, even if death should result from his allegiance. He also was indebted to Morgan for his previous horrible helmsman performance. Father Francis Brown was also aboard the Titanic. He was allegedly tasked with two specific duties. Photograph the three target victims aboard the vessel just before it departed. Make certain Captain Smith carried out his job, which was to run the ship at full speed through an ice field in the dark of night. We all know the plan worked, but not quite how it was supposed to. And this makes me think, okay, so if they modified the Olympic and made it safer, just like they did the Titanic, or actually they said that it was the Titanic they made safer. They didn't say they made the Olympic safer. Yes, the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank, but as the conspiracy theory goes, far more people perished than the Morgans, Rothschilds, and Rockefellers had intended. 1,500 more people, in fact. It was later discovered that the ship was ill-equipped for the crash, with far too few lifeboats to properly save all the passengers and crew. Also, there was no one on board sufficiently trained to safely evacuate the passengers in such an event. Regardless, Strauss, Guggenheim, and Astor all died in the crash as planned. I wonder if they had their families with them. And I wonder why. There's probably documentation on this, but I wonder why they were against the formation of the Federal Reserve. In December 1913, the U.S. Federal Reserve officially came into being. And how it came into being was also by intrigue, because if you look at the congressional documents, they passed the Federal Reserve Act during Christmas break when most of the congressmen and senators were on holiday celebrating Christmas with their families. It was controlled by none other than the Rothschilds banking elite. 8 months after that, in 1914, the Jesuits had sufficient funding, thanks to the Fed, to start a little religious-based trouble over in Europe, and thus World War I began. But that's another story. Interesting. That's interesting. I wonder how much of that is true. Have Jimmy Dore on the show. See, the thing about this channel right here, guys, is I've been so economically suppressed and censored. And you see my channel. It supposedly has 500,000 subscribers and it barely gets 8,000, 10,000 views a video. Look, there's only 516 people in here out of 500,000 subscribers. I'm surprised you guys are even here. I'm surprised there's 5 of you in here. I really appreciate you guys being in here. I've tried to reach out to Jimmy Dore. I've tried to reach out to people. They don't contact me back. So, that's, I guess it is what it is. I do like a lot of what Jimmy Dore says, and it looks like he's come a long way since he spit in the face of Alex Jones. I would like to have Alex Jones on the show, although after I confronted him in Virginia in January of 2020 about his support for Donald Trump with the bump stock bans and the red flag laws and the basically evaporation of the First Amendment on college campuses in the name of stamping out anti-Semitism, I doubt that Alex Jones would give me an audience, So I don't know. It is what it is. I would like to spread more truth to more people. That's why I keep this channel. Also, I have, let me go to the High Impact Flicks channel here. I've got a presence on Rumble, which I do need to expand.
I will do what.
Let me see. Let me see if I got my Rumble on here. Let's see. Don't tell me my Rumble channel is not linked in here. You got to be kidding me. Oh yeah, here we go. I don't have my Rumble channel in there. Unbelievable. Yeah, that is definitely an oversight. So let me give you my Odyssey channel. Oh, here it is. There's Rumble. Here's my Rumble channel, guys. Are you guys subscribed to my Rumble channel? Alex's Independent Media by Mainstream Media. Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of mainstream media, which is Fake Stream, CIA Infiltrated, Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra Media, Alex Jones would be considered independent. But Alex Jones is in the tank for ISRA HE double hockey sticks, guys. That's not good. If you're in the tank for ISRA HE double hockey sticks, you're not for America. You're not for Americans. You're an avowed enemy of America. ISRA HE double hockey sticks hates us. If you want an ironclad, objective perspective on that truth, just look up what happened to the USS Liberty. That as just one example. Found another great source of info for stepping away from the system, says Endorphin. What's up, W? Blind Justice says, happy to collab with you. Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Let's see. Let me see here. WCMW. Thanks for being here, man. Sub to your Rumble. Thanks, Harps. Darkado, appreciate it. Just real quick, let me just go over some. Darkado sent another Cash App. Thanks, Darkado, for that $5 Cash App. Thank you, Seth. Darkado again for the Cash App. Thanks, Mitchell Morris. So Dark, just to let you know, just full disclosure, Darkado, $5 Cash App. Seth, a $5 Cash App. Darkado again, $10. Michael Morris. Sorry, I said your name again. Your last name. $10. Brooklyn Audit. Visit Brooklyn Audit. Visit Blind Justice. Subscribe to their channels. Brooklyn Audit, $10. Jeremiah B, $5. I appreciate the support, guys. Modern Retro Radio. What's up, man? Roy Potter would be a better guest for Brian. I like Roy. I've talked to him once. We had a great conversation. He's very in tune what's going on with, world events in the military-industrial complex. Yeah, thank you for that, Justin. Yeah, drop a like. Brian, let me get a free t-shirt. Can't send anything on YouTube to High Impact Flicks. AnCap Gamer, what's up, man? You can sync YouTube to Rumble. Yeah, you can also sync them to Odyssey. I love Odyssey, man. Odyssey's good. Brian, do a collab with Healthy American channel. I've been in contact with her assistant via email, and I don't know what it is. Hey, what's up, Eurythica? Eurythica Star is here. Eurythica is the one who got basically her freedom taken away for picking up raw milk in a school parking lot from a teacher at the school by these Colorado police. Guys, she was taken to jail for 17 days for no reason. Manhandled, put in the torture cuffs, fingerprinted, mugshotted, clothes stripped off, invaded. That's by the way, that's on my here. Let me show you. That's on my Here's the Deal channel. You got to see this video, guys. You got to see this video. Unbelievable. I think I'm saying that right. I think it's one of the most popular videos that I have on my. Let's see. It's this one right here. This one right here. She was just sitting there enjoying her day, and then this happened. Was it the Colorado cops? Eurythika, was it Colorado? I can't remember. This is Eurythika right here. She's in the chat room right now. Let me drop this link. If you haven't seen this, by the way, I do have a backup channel called Here's the Deal. It's my police accountability, public servant accountability channel. Has Alex ever been right? A lot, Kronos. A lot. He was right about SH in Connecticut, and then he backed off of it. He was right. Rumble pays $2 a year. Yeah, I know. I think I've made $8.17 in 2 years on Rumble. You know who's popular in Rumble? Russell Brand, Benny Johnson. There's a lot of people. They'll upload a video and they'll literally get 150,000 views in less than an hour on Rumble. Let me see. Let's see. Looking for Eurythika's comment. Was it? I don't want to name the. I don't want to name the wrong police department. I'm pretty sure it was the Colorado Police Department. Let's see. They totally violated 18 USC 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. Here's the cop.
Going to give me your information, then you're going to go in cuffs.
I'm not threatening. And she's just sitting there. She is just sitting there, minding her own business, picking up milk in a school parking lot, but the teacher knows that she's there picking up milk on American soil by American police who swore an oath to the Constitution to protect and defend Eurythika's rights right here. Unbelievable. Who's a shill? Who's a shill, Space? What about Nino Rodriguez? Is that who you're talking about? Punisher? I would talk to Nino. Nino had a really good conversation with Chile from Delete Laws. I keep getting Benny Johnson notifications. Eurythika says Florence PD, Fremont, Colorado. Yeah, it was Colorado. Thanks, Eurythika. That's who we need to do an interview with. We need to get Eurythika on so she can tell us where they're at in that case. She said it was Fremont. Thanks, Crypto. Yeah, they don't swear their oaths to the people. I agree, Blind Justice. But usually when people say they swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, first of all, it's hypocritical because they say we swear an oath, we swear to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the United States. Well, guess what? The laws of the United States contradict what the freedoms found in the Bill of Rights, let's say. And then there are other things in the Constitution that conflict with the Bill of Rights. So it's all contradictory. It's convoluted. It's all hypocritical. It's just a complete puffball of nonsense, to put it, I mean, in a light way. But yeah, when they say they swear an oath to the Constitution, it's supposed to be synonymous with we swear an oath to protect and defend your liberties. But they don't. None of us signed the Constitution either. Another good point. Because if there's a document and they call it the social contract, if you didn't sign that document, you are under no obligation to fulfill any contract. It's like saying, hey, I declare myself the ruler of my neighborhood, and me and 5 of my best friends got together and we signed this document. And now because we have a contract, you guys are all under our social contract. That's how ridiculous it is. Yeah, Blind Justice is making some good points in here. Yeah, Wolfgang Halbig, that guy right there is probably one of the most censored guys on the internet. And there's a reason for that. There's something about SH, the SH school in Connecticut, that they don't want you to know about. There's some crazy things that went on there that are pretty obvious. I'm not going to mention any names, Robbie Parker. I'm not going to mention those kind of names, Gene Rosen. Nope, not going to mention those names. That make you scratch your head and go, what the frick is going on here? It's obvious that this is a cover-up by mainstream media on what really happened here. And then you look at the Alex Jones trial and you go, what? He was so right on and he backed off of it? How much did he get paid for this? And then they're gonna sue him to the tune of $1 billion? I don't buy any of that stuff. What a show. What a show. He should have stuck to his guns, man. All he had to do was say, you prove that what I said was false. You prove it. Prove it. Because, see, it's basically mainstream. At that point, before Alex Jones turned, it was mainstream media's word against what Alex Jones said. And say, hey, you guys, all Alex Jones had to say is, you guys made your case. I made my case. And in essence, you mainstream media had your opinion about what happened. I had my reporters on the ground and I had my opinion about what happened. Now you guys determine what you think is the truth. Maybe it's not Alex Jones that's right. Maybe it's not mainstream media who's right. Maybe somebody else is right. But there's definitely conflict there. And there were definitely a lot of good points that AJ brought up that he completely let go and stepped away from. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me scratch my head and go, okay, that guy's not on our side. He would have been better off sticking with his main story, saying, I still maintain that what I said was the truth. Based on my investigation, based on my research, this is what I came up with. And if you guys have a problem with it, you prove me wrong. Explain what H. Wayne Carver said. Explain all of the dealings with G. Rosen and R. Parker. You tell me. Brian, someone called my phone pretending to be you with a fake. Here's the deal. They actually called your... How'd they even get your number? Eurythica, how'd they even get your number? AJ could have won that court case if it was real. I was thinking that too, Swamp Lover. I was thinking that same thing. He should have reminded them that he had freedom of speech. That's another thing, guys. He backed off of his freedom to say whatever he wanted. This was more than a witch hunt for Alex Jones. This was a witch hunt for anybody who dared express their opinion on the internet or anywhere else. If you have an opinion, the whole court case with Alex Jones was, if you have an opinion that varies from mainstream corporate media, then you can be sued to the tune of $1 billion. Because you hurt somebody's feelings. Hey, if those people didn't want to know what, or didn't want to get hurt, their feelings hurt by Alex Jones, they didn't have to tune into Alex Jones. But even in that court proceeding, they kept playing Alex Jones clips over and over and over, hurting the feelings of the victims. There's no AI on earth that can replicate Brian Young. Thanks a lot, man. Oh, wait a second. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I love hanging out with you guys. Robbie P should be on AGT. Oh, America's Got Talent. Oh my goodness. It was a horrible performance too, by any stretch of the imagination. But it sure did look like a performance, didn't it? Anybody with $1 billion to spare? Yep, exactly, Swamp Lover. It showed me he was paid opposition. He doesn't care. He could have done a whole lot better job. And he could have even written himself a script and just followed that script. Instead, he's sitting there lying about, yeah, I got this surgery. I lost my voice about 20 years ago, and got to drink this water. And just a bunch of lies. Just came across as somebody that you can't even believe. Thanks, ANCAP Gamer. You guys are all awesome, every one of you. Jason Wallace, William Cooper. William Cooper exposed the AJ charade years ago. And what happened to him? Okay. All right, Blind Justice. Thanks, man. Thanks for stopping by. Alec Baldwin was set up. Alec Baldwin is a setup. Anything to take away gun rights. Anything to make people who believe in freedom look like buffoons. Thanks for dropping that Rumble thing, Swamp Lover. You know what we should do? We should play some of Eurythika's video, but we should do it in another live stream because I want it to be a standalone. People really need to see this. They need to see the state of law enforcement. The interesting thing about law enforcement and the left versus right paradigm is if you come against police, then automatically in the eyes of a lot of conservatives, you're BLM. And nothing could be further from the truth. BLM is a PsyOp, guys. When you got Hawk Newsom, who's the BLM leader for the greater New York area, saying that if black people don't get what they want, we're going to burn this country to ashes, which is literally a terrorist threat of national arson, and they let Vice News run it with full long play ads on the YouTube platform, which is literally a threat to all Americans about burning everything to the ground if they don't get what they want. What do you have that we don't have, Hawk? You have the same freedoms I have. Is there profiling for some people versus other people? Of course. Is it a problem of systemic racism? I don't think it is like corporate media is trying to, get us to believe. The only racism I see is being fomented by people like Donald Lamone from the Counterfeit News Network, who says the greatest terror threat in America is white males radicalized to the right. That he literally says that. Simone Sanders says, I'm just here for the white people. Oh, the white people. There's obviously on corporate media an anti-white agenda. There obviously is. So let me just ask you guys before I leave, because I don't want to belabor this, and we've already been talking for almost 2 hours. Holy cow, you guys are probably saying, shut the frick, I'm out of here. If you want me to do more live streams, let me know. If you do me a favor and subscribe to my backup channel, Here's the Deal. And the reason I call it Here's the Deal is because that's what law enforcement agents or public servants say right before you're about to lose all your rights. Here's the deal. It's going to go one of two ways for you, buddy. If you don't comply with my commands and my authority and submit to me, you're going to jail. In other words, you're going to lose all your rights like Eurythika Starr did right here. Eurythika, what we should do is we should do a live stream where we talk about this current case that you're involved in with what happened there in Colorado. If you're interested in doing that, let me know. I know we should have set that up a long time ago. That's my fault. I dropped the ball. How do you deal with fighter jets when they deploy? Oh, did I forget to drop that link? Here's the Deal channel right there. Yeah, so if you want me to do more live streams, if you're willing to go with me over to Rumble to do a live stream, that's another thing I was going to do. I was going to go over to my Rumble channel. I don't even know how many subscribers I got on Rumble. Anytime I go live on Rumble, I don't really have very many people over there. This is my Rumble channel right here. If you're not subscribed to it, how many? 3.28 thousand subscribers. See, I got a way bigger reach over here on YouTube. Interview YouTuber 123 home free. 123 home free. Let's see. 1, 2.
Now here's the kind of traffic stop you don't see.
1, 2, 3. One, two, three, home free. Never heard of him.
All these ideas that have come through me have been ideas for you guys to take up.
I'm going to start doing some more live streams also on my Here's the Deal channel. My goal, guys, just let me reiterate my goal. My goal for my whole social media presence, whether you're talking about Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, is we have got to carve out real freedom for ourselves. Liability-free freedom. And what I mean by that is freedom that you can exercise without government agents feeling like they have the right to infringe on your rights for public safety. Because that's always the alibi of tyrants, right? Public safety is the alibi of tyrants. That gives them the justification to ruin your freedom and to economically terrorize you. So my whole social media presence can be boiled down into I just want to secure freedom. If you don't have freedom, you don't have life. Freedom for you, for your children, for your grandchildren. And when I say freedom, I'm talking about economic freedom too. And it's predicated on some pretty clear objective statements and standards. Number one, does anybody have a higher claim over your life and your property than you? The answer is obviously, self-evidently, no. Nobody's got a higher claim over your life and property than you. Is it ever right? Here's the second question. Is it ever right to initiate unjust force and violence on peaceful people who haven't done anything wrong? The obvious, clear answer that 100% of people who have sanity still swimming around their brains is no. It is never right to initiate unjust force and violence on peaceful people who haven't done anything wrong. And number four, is it ever right to violate the golden rule? Do to others what you would want done to you. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you. Sane, rational, truth-telling people say, no, it's never right to violate that. So if we can all get together on those three things, we can frickin' change the world, guys. Because all three of those things are what the government, agents of government, specialize in violating. And so if we can build up a society that safeguards those three rules that every rational, sane, objective, reasoning person can agree with, then we can change the world. This means we would reject the CBDC. We would reject fiat currency under the Federal Reserve central banking Ponzi scheme. We would reject the IRS because that's predicated on theft, because that's a violation of the golden rule. We would reject today's American policing because they do believe they have a higher claim over your life and property than you, and that those badges and uniforms grant special rights. If we can agree on those things, we can change the world. And so when people say you're always bitching about the problem, and we agree, Brian, that is the problem. But what's the solution? It's those three things that we can all agree with. Those are the solutions. If you can agree on those, we can still build the roads. We can still have clean running water. We can still have freedom and a monetary system that is built on sound money. We would have a more secure, safer, more valuable monetary system. Would it be hard to detach from the current paradigm? Absolutely. Because those tentacles are in everything. Nothing that you possess, look at, the devices that you have, the car that you drive, the rent that you pay, nothing is detached from the US dollar. It will be, and it's going to be a painful experience for us to go through. But anyway, that's what my social media presence is all about. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm talking to you. That's why I appreciate this community. And I don't even know what else to tell you. The other thing is, people get on to me for, selling shirts or whatever. If you guys want to support the channel, I appreciate it. I'm going to use all the resources that you give me to keep the lights on so that I can continue this message. Because like Ron Paul has always said, even standing armies, all the armies of the world were aligned against an idea whose time has come. They could not stop it. And those ideas whose time has come must be predicated on those three basic tenets that we can all agree on. Nobody will ever have a higher claim over your life and property than you. And I'll probably go to prison one day for saying that. Because you got to take a stand. And when you take a stand for truth and against the empire of lies, you usually pay consequences. But how we can curb those consequences and take the edge off those consequences is if more people buy onto it. And I mean heart and soul. I don't mean just talking about this. I mean actually living it. We can bring down everything. We can bring down the voting process, the whole political paradigm, the socioeconomic structure that is built on the funny money of the fiat currency Ponzi scheme, everything. So if you think this is valuable, I appreciate your support. You do not. I will always find a way to try to get some kind of information out on the internet for the benefit of the masses. Because I know if I benefit you, I benefit myself and my family. It's kind of karmic, if you think about that kind of stuff. is that even if you do it in secret and nobody knows about your evil deed or your good deed, somehow it ends up coming back to you. Maybe not this year or next year or in the next 10 years, but somewhere along the line it comes, and maybe not even in your lifetime. Maybe that good or bad thing that you did to somebody or for somebody will come back on your family. But I've seen it too many times not to believe that, wow, I can't put my finger on why it is, but it just seems like if you do good things come back to you. You can do things and bad things come back to you. Don't get me wrong. And you can do bad things and good things will come back to you. Don't get me wrong. But somewhere along the line, it comes back to you. So that's the show for today. Thanks for sticking with me so long, guys. Thanks for being here. Do me a favor, leave a comment in the comment section. It helps with the algorithms. Leave a like. There's 593 likes right now. Just keep doing what you're doing. Just spread the fire. Just spread the fire. It's all about setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next live stream. Subscribe to my Here's the Deal channel. I may do a live stream tonight or tomorrow. They're tying up a lot of the videos that I have in the queue to go live. So, there's that too. Also, Grease Monkey videos. I got that as a backup channel as well. So visit me on all my outlets. Say hi to me over on Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Take care.